Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, natural wonders and rare wildlife of Northern Australia. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Nikki Sentinella. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Over to you, Nikki.
Thanks, Rob, and hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, good day, as we say here. I'm joining you guys from Awabakal Land, which is a couple hours north of Sydney in New South Wales. Balmy 5 a.m. So if you hear some kookaburras in the background, that's just everyone waking up. Um, I'm going to explore a little bit of our new northern itinerary today, which has just opened for this season, and it is absolutely incredible. I've just come back from that first trip, and I'm excited to head back out again. It's a really diverse and really interesting trip, and it's not something that I think I've seen offered in terms of this breadth of area that we cover, and also the diversity of the landscapes, the cultures that we see, and of course the wildlife that we see. So we really hit some of the most amazing big boxes, and some of these places, most Australians haven't seen all together in a trip as well. So there was definitely some new species pretty much every time I go out, because there's just so much to see out there. So, hello everyone, my name's Nikki. I am an expedition leader with Natural Habitat. I started over in Canada actually when I was working there for a few years on the Churchill Polar Bear program, before moving back home here to Australia, where I do all of our expeditions here. So I do the south and the north. And it's been really exciting to be a part of that pretty much from the get go in Australia and see how we've changed that and continue to grow and build relationships everywhere across this amazing country, because it's a big and huge, amazing country that deserves, I think, a lot of exploration. When I'm not guiding, I am also a conservation biologist. So I studied conservation biology at university, and have been working as a research assistant for a number of universities here and doing field work in Canada as well. And I'm a bit of a photographer. I've got a nice big lens. I don't think that's the only criteria. I just like getting out there and snapping, whether it's with my cell phone or my camera, and just finding different ways to showcase this really beautiful landscape. So that's me. Today, what we're going to go through is a bit of an overview of our northern trip. So I'm going to go through what we can expect to see. I'm going to show you just a general map of where we go. I'm going to step through the itinerary, not in huge depth, but sort of highlight reel and point out where we're going to be for each of the days. And then I'll break down some of the nitty gritty of the trip as well. So I'll talk about packing, I'll talk about what our travel and accommodation will be like, the weather, and the physical requirements of that trip. Before I then open it up for Q&A, I'm going to finish a little bit earlier to give you guys the opportunity to ask as many questions as you would like. While you've got me, please do ask anything. Um, and yeah, just submit those. You can submit those questions throughout the presentation as you think of them, or at the end, Rob and I will remind you. Okay, so where do we go? Where don't we go? The ultimate goal for this is to really take you to the really key areas within the Red Centre, the top end, and the Kimberley. We start in Sydney, which is a really nice place to start, and I think is not only a central hub for a lot of us to fly into Australia, it's not only a very, very iconic city, but it's also a very important part in terms of the history of Australia, especially when we have a huge Indigenous focus on this trip. And so it's sort of important to see this juxtaposition of this first landing of Europeans in Sydney and what that has meant for the Gadigal people there, and then going out to these more what we call remote areas. We're actually very much thriving and full of culture, full of language, full of art as well. So it's a really interesting starting point. Before we head over into the Red Centre, we fly directly into Yulara, which is the town right next to the Uluru. So we get to see the beautiful Uluru Rock, and we also see Katajuda, which you may know as the Olgas, and we spend a few days there before jumping on the train, heading up to Kakadu, and exploring Kakadu National Park in multiple trips around the whole region, before heading over to the Kimberley. And the Kimberley is quite a large region. It's the top of Western Australia. And that region has a huge diversity of landscapes, of wildlife and birds, amazing marine life, and the classic red sand beaches that we see in Broome. So I'll go through that in a little bit of detail, um, but just showing you sort of the size of this trip. So have a look at where Sydney is here and have a look where Darwin is up on the top of the map. And then this is a map of Australia overlaid with the US. You can see Sydney all the way down in Florida, and you can see Darwin all the way up in Canada. And so it is a very large country, and we need to remember that when we're traveling through. All of our Australian itineraries do cover a lot of ground, which is amazing. It means you get to go to completely different places. And so while we look at this map in terms of scale, I'd like you to have a look at this map, and this is a map of the First Nations of Australia. So this shows us the diversity of the different language groups across Australia. So these are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups, and they show sort of none of these straight lines or any clear-cut definitions of where those boundaries necessarily are, because that would shift. And this is also our best understanding of those language groups, but some of those languages have been lost, and we talk about that quite a lot on our trip. But I want you to take in how many nations there are here. It is a hugely diverse place, and so you can sort of think of it as you would think about European countries. Each country is quite small, neighboured by a lot, has completely different language, completely different customs, completely different traditions, and their own full history. And so that's something that I really like people to bear in mind when we travel across Australia as well. Because while we go to these different places in the big country that we call Australia, we're actually visiting a lot of different nations. And so when we meet the Ainu people in Uluru, that language is going to be very different from when we head up to Purnululu National Park and meet the Gija people. So language will change, culture will change, art styles will change, but that common thread of that connection to land is really prevalent throughout. So just something to bear in mind as we move through this space, how diverse it is on every level. So I really like that. I'm going to start off with packing. There is a really beautiful packing list if you do book this trip. We send you a really nice detailed packing list, which is great because then I don't forget my toothbrush, but it reminds you about things like lens cloth cleaners and things like that. But in general, I've just sort of put in the big ones that I would recommend for the northern trip as compared to any sort of travel trip. You're going to be traveling a lot of distance, as I've mentioned, and that does extend to climate as well. We are spending a fair bit of our time in arid regions and semi-arid regions. And when we're in those sort of deserty environments, it means we get a really large diurnal range. So the difference between the daytime temperature and the nighttime temperature can be quite extreme, especially when we go in the winter months. We go in the winter months so that the hot periods are not so hot. The top end and northern Australia is pretty sweltering in the summer, and so we've tailored this season to only operate through the winter. It's our dry season up there as well, so it's just a lot more manageable, but you're still looking at quite a large temperature range. It can be down to a frosty freezing sometimes at night. Usually we're seeing it a little bit warmer than that. And then it's not unusual to hit over 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius. And so that range will affect what we're going to pack. So as with, I think, any trip that I recommend, layers, layers, layers. It gives you versatility. You can wear those layers singly and through your laundry list a little bit slower, but when it's cold, it means you can just chuck those layers on together. So cool long sleeves are really good It's quite a sunny place over in Australia, so having like a loose safari shirt or something like that, and the long pants, especially those lovely ones that zip down to shorts, adding to your layer flexibility. That's going to keep you nice and cool and protected from the sun, and it's also going to help with insects. We do get quite a few flies in the center, as I'll show you later on. And when we're up in the wetlands, we do have some mosquitoes and some other bugs there as well. We provide fly nets for everyone, but if you want to keep your own and have it with you and know that it's there, I recommend a fly net for yourself. I've reiterated jackets for the evening because I think a lot of people, when they say, oh, it's going to be 100 degrees, it's going to be lovely, it's sunny all the time, um, it gets quite cool. And we do a few sunset experiences and a few sunrise experiences as well, which are absolutely stunning. But it means that you want to be bundled up and then you can slowly take those layers off as we go through the day. We're always within range of our vehicles for the day, and so you can use it as a bit of a home base to leave any layers throughout the day. You don't have to carry them around. Shoes is often what I'm asked about. I would want sturdy walking shoes. A few of the areas that we go to have quite rocky underfoot paths and can be relatively uneven. And so sturdy walking shoes with ankle support is going to be really helpful for you. I would also bring a pair of more comfortable shoes. So shoes that you're more comfortable wearing all day, every day, good for travel days, good for walking around in our accommodations, something just more relaxed and comfortable. So you're not only in your big heavy hikers. I put swimmers here. We're not going swimming in any of our natural creeks and rivers, especially in Kakadu, which is where our crocodiles love to live. But every single accommodation that we have has a pool, and there is a small opportunity over in Broome to potentially go into the water if the conditions are good. And that's in the net of the back of a boat, which I'll show you a little bit later on. So if you love swimming, please bring your swimmers. It is not required, but it is just a nice option to have, especially if we have a day. It's nice to just jump in the pool. Cameras, binoculars, all your normal amazing things to enjoy and experience our trips. We are seeing a huge diversity of birds on this trip, so you definitely want to have those binoculars with you and always handy. And then in terms of cameras, just bring your cell phone if that's what you've got accessible to you. Your expedition leaders, the whole Australia team, which I work with, are amazing photographers. So they can take some of that burden off you if you just want to experience and absorb. Please feel free because it's a really nice way to see the landscape and experience it and then come back and you can look at our photos. But if you are a photographer, then I would be bringing pretty general, depending on what you are interested in. It's a really beautiful scenic trip, a lot of landscapes. We have some amazing wildlife. We're generally pretty up close with our birds. We do a lot of river cruises. Things like crocodiles are going to be nice and big. Agile wallabies, again, we should be able to get a little bit closer. So your general sort of 100 to 400 mil lens is a nice middle ground to be able to capture some of that up close perspective of wildlife, but also step back a little bit and get some context, as well as a shorter lens I do quite like. Although often I see people will do like a 100 to 400 and then supplement with their cell phone because they're so good these days. And that can be your sort of wide angle general lens as well. So just depending on what you want to do. If you're really into those up close shots, I bring a 180 to 600 because I know that that will fill a gap for a lot of people and I don't expect everyone to lug around a big lens. You can, but I do find it does limit my smaller range. So I like going down to that 100 or even 70 is going to allow for a wider shot there. If anyone has any more specific camera questions, then pop in a question. This is just a lovely photo of us at Purnululu National Park, and this is Beck. She's our local Indigenous guide there. She is an incredible woman, and I love spending time with her. But this just shows you just a general day out for us. So all just wearing sort of loose, long sleeves. A few of us have our layers on. This was in the morning, and by the end of the walk, most of us were down to our base layers. Nice backpacks that are for our day trips, and Beck's demonstrating beautifully to have that water bottle ready. So if you have a water bottle from us or your own, please bring that and make sure that you're staying hydrated throughout the trip. We provide water on all of our vehicles and everywhere that we go so we can keep ourselves topped up. And it's very, very important, especially for long trips. This is a 14-day trip, and it can take a toll over time, so it's worth staying on top of that hydration. So thanks, Beck, for showcasing that one. As I mentioned, there can be a few flies. The flies generally do like to hang out on your back as you're walking because it's protected. So that's nice. I'm not wearing a net as I walk. They're not in my face as much, but most other people will find a net is more comfortable. We've got Joanne and Mario on the left here demonstrating the eating etiquette, which is do what you got to do. The flies are a bit of a nuisance, but they don't bite. They are just around. They're just trying to get moisture, so that's why they're attracted to things like our eyes and our mouth because they're like, oh, yay, there's some moisture here in the dry season. Moving and fly net, you're not going to have a problem. I don't mind them on my arms or anything like that because that means they're not bothering my face. And so I tolerate them quite easily. And because they don't bite, it doesn't really matter. Things like no-see-ums that I know a lot of people are familiar with are a completely different story. And we don't see them here in the centre, which is awesome. So just those flies. Up north in the wetland areas, we do get mosquitoes when we are in the middle of wetlands. It's kind of unavoidable. Similarly, keeping moving, long loose sleeves and a fly net will get you most of the way. Otherwise, we do have insect repellent as well. All right, so let's go into a little bit more detail of this trip and where we go and have a little look at some of the places that we see. All the photos that I use are from the last trip that we just did. So it couldn't be more current than that. So as I mentioned, we start in Sydney, Gadigal land, which is part of the Eora Nation. This is where I grew up as well. Pretty near and dear to my heart and pretty interesting to see all the different sides of Sydney. So we start off in Sydney, we start off in an area called Rocks, which is the old historic district. You can see sort of the old shipyards and warehouses that line the front of the water here. This is all heritage listed as well. The rocks in Gadigal language are known as Tullawallada. And Tullawallada is an amazing area with a lot of history, not just of settlement history. We learn about sort of sandstone quarrying that happened and built a lot of the early buildings there. But we can also start to take a look at what's underneath the city. And by underneath the city, I mean what's always been there, the existing land formations, the whole river estuary that serves Sydney Harbour, and start to learn and think about what it was like before it turned into this massive capital. It has undergone the most changes, I would say, of areas in Australia. So it's really interesting and takes a little bit more sort of considered effort to look beneath that and start to explore some of the Gadigal culture. We do that in a couple of ways. Well, we head across on the ferry. It was a pretty cloudy morning for us when we took the ferry across, but it gives us a really, really beautiful look at the iconic Harbour Bridge and Opera House. It gives us some time on the water, and you do have the chance to see whales. We were lucky enough to see some whales over in Manly as we came across, as it is migration season at the moment. So a really beautiful trip over, and we head over to a place called North Head, which is this really beautiful wildflower and natural sanctuary on top of this hill just near Manly. And so up on the hill, you have all of this really amazing coastal heath vegetation, which is a vegetation type we don't actually see for a lot of the rest of the trip. But it's a lot of very iconic Australian plants. And it's a really nice way for us to walk around, get our feet on the ground, get familiar with the landscape there, and start to settle into being in Australia. We go with a lovely guide, Alan, and he shows us some beautiful botany in the area, but then also any of the birds and little critters that decide on that day. Jump back on the ferry and we head over to the Royal Botanic Gardens. And at the Royal Botanic Gardens, we have a really lovely private tour with the staff there for a bush tucker walk, as we call it. So bush tucker or bush foods. We explore some of the natural uses and foods and just implementations of plants across the region, specifically around the Sydney region. We do learn about some of the other species across Australia because the Botanic Gardens is host to a lot of different species. So Yarran here on the left is showing us the Davidson plum, which would be found in northern Queensland, but we're able to see an example of it here and showing us some of the other uses of the plants there. So a really, really nice introduction to the species of the area, but also that nice Indigenous perspective of what actually is used on this land still to this day, and what it would have looked like sort of before the big Sydney harbour that we know of was there. So I really think it's a really nice starting point. It allows us to settle in and get to know each other as well before we then jump on our next leg where we head over to Uluru. So we then take a commercial flight from Sydney to Uluru, and this will probably be the strictest in terms of luggage requirements in terms of carry-on. So this is where we just want to carry on, and I'll go through luggage at the end, but carry on of 15 pounds or 7 kilos. And then the rest of that can quite comfortably fit in our checked bags. It's just the airline, they're known for it. We just try and keep that pretty standard airport carry-on luggage allowance. And then we take that flight and we go straight into Yulara, as I mentioned. So a lot of people, when they go through, they fly into Alice Springs, which is the main city in the centre of the Northern Territory. But we fly into Yulara, which is right next to Uluru. So it saves us a fair bit of time as we just arrive in this stunning landscape. So Uluru, previously known as Ayers Rock, we don't generally use that term anymore. You will see it scattered around. The airport is still officially called Ayers Rock Airport. Generally, when we're talking about the big rock, we call it Uluru. The other formation that we see there is Katajuta, and that's what you're looking at right now. This is a lovely shot of Katajuta at sunrise as we were coming across. And we do quite a lot of sunrise and sunset opportunities so that we can see those gorgeous, iconic colours of our beautiful rock formations here. And we do get up close and personal with them as well. So we spend a good few days here. We have, as soon as we arrive, we head straight to Uluru. And then when we wake up in the morning, we do a sunrise with Uluru, and then we go walk up close and personal. And we do a really beautiful patchy experience. So patchy just means homeland in the local area. And we do an experience with an Anangu Indigenous guide there. And so we go out on full drive and go out past the national park into really sort of private area that we're allowed to go and visit because we have that Indigenous guide. And they show us their landscape, some of their culture. We have a lovely morning tea and yeah, get to share some stories. It's a really beautiful time and place for us to connect with our Apache guide and get to know the land from their perspective, and it's sort of our first real touchstone to Anangu culture on this trip, which is really amazing. Before then, we head out to Katajuta and we do these beautiful walks into Katajuta and into the gorge, and all the while staying at the Desert Gardens Hotel, which is really comfortable and a really nice home base for us. And I'll go through all the accommodations in a bit more detail at the end as well. We have a local guide as well as our Apache guide for the Apache experience, but we're with a local guide for the whole time. This is the lovely Rachel, and Rachel's just sharing some beautiful stories about the gum that you can see coming out of that tree. And it's also the first place that we get to see some rock art up close and personal. The rock art that we see on this trip is amazing and really diverse as well. So we start to see Anangu rock art, so rock art from this region, and you'll see as we get to know those styles and tell those stories in place, When we go up to Kakadu, that it's different again, and when we go across to the Kimberleys, it's different again. So it's as diverse as anything else that we see on these trips, and it's really nice to get familiar with them. The rock art that we see across the trip varies based on where we are. Some are as young as, I'm going to say, well, the youngest that we actually see is 1960, which is awesome to see some more current rock art still being practiced. We see young at about 5,000 years and extending back quite commonly to 20,000 years. And there's some cases where we go back 50,000 years. And that time scale, I think, is something that I really try and get people to feel for the longevity of the custodianship of the Australian lands, because that's a huge amount of time. We go 5,000 years ago and the pyramids are still being built. That's that epitome of, I think, ancient culture that a lot of us think of, and that's only the recent stuff. We're going back 20,000 years, we're going back 40, we're going back 60. Just recently, just out of Sydney as well, we discovered a continual occupation in the Blue Mountains of tools and ash and middens, and that goes back about 22,000 years. It's the first sort of like high country place that we've seen Indigenous occupation during the Ice Age. So it's just incredible. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing place that we go, and we get to go up and learn those stories. And a lot of those stories, um, it's not something that I can share unless I'm there, and same with all of our local guides. It's much better if we can hear it from people who live there, and also some of them you need to be in. And so there's some stories that we hear here in Uluru that have some characters in them that you may actually recognize from another story up in Kakadu. And that's where that story starts, and it's sort of the middle section that you hear in Uluru. If you do come on our ultimate adventure, we go down to the Flinders Ranges, and you'll hear a story there that has some very similar characters. So right through the centre of Australia, from north to south, we have a story that I've only ever heard in place. So it's really, really incredible. This is one of the waterholes here. It's the Mutujulu waterhole with some beautiful water trickling in it at the moment. There was a little bit of rain just before we got there, and it is just this beautiful, quiet, serene place. We all took a moment and soaked it in, watched the birds come down to drink. It was really beautiful. So that's really our Uluru Katajuda. These are some of our sunrises and sunsets, these gorgeous desert oaks that we see that pepper the landscape and really create shapes that we're used to for the landscape around Uluru. And then once we leave Uluru, we jump on often a very anticipated part of the journey, which is the Ghan or the Ghan Railway. To get there from Alice Springs. So we take a private charter flight from Uluru, and we head over to Alice. And then we do a little bit of a tour around Alice Springs, drive around the town, and we also visit the Royal Flying Doctor Service before we jump on the train for one night. So it is a short journey. It is just the one night. It takes us north to Katherine, which is coming into the edge of the Kakadu region, and is just a really lovely experience to have a little bit of a sleeper train experience going through this landscape. Then we arrive in Kakadu National Park. We arrive just a bit south Katherine in Miluck, and we do a lovely walk around the gorges there. And then we meet our local guides for the whole period of Kakadu. So we have the same guides that we stay with. And we get into this new system, this wetland system. And so you start to see these really beautiful paperbark trees, all the lilies that are out at the moment, huge host of water birds. We're coming into our crocodile territory and seeing them really relaxed and happy in their natural habitat. And explore some of the beauties of the region. So there's these amazing, what we call cathedral termite mounds. This one's a small one. These incredible structures made by termites there trying to regulate their heat. This is a rose-crowned fruit dove, which we were very lucky to see out in the open for so long. They're quite a flighty bird, but we managed to this bird for about 10 minutes. It was incredible. Absolutely beautiful. You're coming into this tropic region. You're starting to see your classic colourful tropical birds as well, and a huge diversity, a lot of new species. People who are interested in birding, and for those who are not, you will be by the end of the trip. It's just a really, really beautiful and busy area. And then we also see some more rock art. So we go across to Ubir and on Bungle Shelter. We learn some stories there. And you can see that this art is very different. This is what we call a style of art and is really known in this region. Up into Arnland and is really, yeah, quite well known for this area. We do go to a couple of little art centres, and the hotel that we stay in actually has a really beautiful gallery that you can explore the art there. And there are some little prints, canvas originals rather, that you can purchase as well. So that's a dangerous place for me to be, but a really beautiful landscape there. It's also where we can run into our dingoes. We did see a few dingoes there, and we talk about dingoes. I believe Matt Cornish did a webinar just recently. You can have a look on our archives talking about dingoes and Tasmanian devils and Tasmanian tigers. Sorry. Tasmanian tigers were thought to be pushed out by the dingoes, and the dingoes now fill that apex predator role, and they've been there about 5,000 years, so we call them naturalized. They're pretty near and dear to my heart. I've done a fair bit of research with these guys, so I love it when I happen to come across one out in the wild. Then we head over to the Kimberley. We're still going. We're still exploring these amazing different areas. So Kimberley, this is like the iconic color scheme of the Kimberley. So you've got these really rich red sand beaches and this beautiful turquoise blue water. We spent a lot of time in the Kimberley exploring a lot of it. It is a huge region, and so we do have 2 days where we are taking small charter flights in and out of the region. So it is pretty travel heavy, but we stay in the one accommodation for 4 nights, and so we slow down our movement in terms of packing and repacking. We have our base, and then we go out and we explore these really beautiful areas. So we stay in the resort, which I'll show you in a sec, and it's absolutely stunning. And then we have 2 days where we head completely out of the region. We head out of Broome, where we're based. We head into Purnululu National Park. And the other day we head, this is on this flight, we head up to Cygnet Bay. And at Cygnet Bay, we also have an Indigenous experience with the Lullum group. And we see a pearl farm, and it's incredible. So this is Purnululu National Park. You may also know it as Bungle Bungles. We're moving away from Bungle Bungles as a name, even though most Australians know it as Bungle Bungles. Bungle Bungles is a bit of a back translation. So it was, people assuming it was from this language and then applying a linguistic feature, which is two words together meaning plural. So one bungle, two bungles. But that's not true in this language. That's true in other languages in other parts of Australia. Here with Purnululu, it just means grass. It doesn't mean many grasses, it means grass. So Purnululu actually means fretting sands or sandstone, and these are the formations that we see. And so these are these natural sort of beehive structures. And we do a scenic flight over this first. So we get a sense of scale, we get to see these formations and how extend. Some of the gorges are ridiculously deep. And then we come down and we meet our Indigenous guide Beck, and we walk through and go up into the beehive domes and see some really, really beautiful landscapes here. So this is Beck, and she did a lovely song for us in this gorgeous cathedral gorge. And so the acoustics was surreal, really. We have a little lunch there, and then we head back down, and that's our Purnululu day. We then take a break from flying for a second, and we are having a beautiful day on the water. This is with Ken and Val, and we go out and we do it's called broom whale watching, but we're focusing on a different one which most people haven't seen, which is a snubfin dolphin. I'll show you them in just a sec. In addition to looking for that, we're looking for anything else on the water. It is a place that is home to dugong, is home to turtles, at least 4 different species of turtle, sea snakes, and then this huge array of shorebirds. So these are our pied stilts. There's a few red-necked avocets in there as well. And they were all on the beach. And as we approached, they all took off, circled us, and then landed back on the beach. It was absolutely stunning. And so it's really nice to see these shorebirds in areas that are a little bit harder to get to us by land and spend that time on the water. But we're really looking for these guys in the center at the bottom. These are our snubfin dolphins. And snubfin dolphins are incredibly special. There's only about 2,000 to 3,000 estimated individuals of the snubfin, and it was only until 2005 that they were recognized as their own species from the Irrawaddy dolphin. So they were separated from another dolphin species and recognized as their own species. They're most closely related to orcas, and so you sort of see that in the fact that they don't have a snout, like you think of like bottlenose dolphins or common dolphins. They do just sort of come straight down in that sort of orca shape. They're incredibly cute and can be quite playful. And we saw quite a few around us. And Cam is so experienced at knowing these waters. This is what he does day in, day out. And he takes us to just the best places all the time. This turtle up in the top left is our flatback turtle. And there was quite a few hanging around in Cam's secret spot. And so it's just a beautiful with amazing food, fresh scones and tea, coffee, and yeah, just a really, really beautiful day out. And then that afternoon, we go bird watching as well. And then we do our next scenic flight the next day, and we go to this gorgeous, amazing place called Horizontal Falls. Great to get in Broome and out here in the Buccaneer Archipelago is huge. We're looking at tidal shifts of about 10 meters consistently. 10 meters every tide. And what that huge tidal flow does is it creates this incredible natural wonder. David Attenborough called it the eighth natural wonder of the world. I think that title has gone around to quite a few places. Um, but you get these falls that are just these tidal flows going through some very small gaps in the ranges here, and it looks like horizontal falls. So we fly over this, we fly over the archipelago, and then we land in Cygnet Bay, where we have this really beautiful experience with Bolo and Lalam, and we really get taken into this community. It's outside of, there's like Cygnet Bay where we land is a little bit more touristy. It's a gorgeous pearl farm. We have a lovely beach there. And then we hit the road and we go into these beautiful communities, and the hospitality we're shown is incredible. Song, dance, food on the fire, freshly caught from the ocean. Huge bird diversity as well. We got in and then totally interrupted Rosanna because we saw a golden finch. And yeah, just a really, really beautiful, warm, homely feeling as you come into this space. And then some beautiful sunsets in Broome as well. From then we head over to Darwin, and Darwin is where we finish. So we fly into Darwin and we have a final dinner together. We have a night in the Hilton in Darwin, and it's right against the Esplanade. It's really, really beautiful foreshore there. Before we then organise departures for the next day, unfortunately. So it sort of ends in a whirlwind. It's a really nice place to come back to as a central hub in the north. If you spend a little bit of extra time there, which I'd recommend, it is really beautiful along the foreshore. Huge birding opportunities, but also just another like city environment that most people don't really explore as much. Like, you know, people go Sydney, Brisbane, but Darwin's quite a beautiful city as well, especially in winter when it's nice and cool. So that's our trip. The accommodations are relatively they're pretty varied. We start off in Sydney. We stay at the Sydney Harbour Hotel, which is right in Tullawallada in the rocks. You walk 100 meters and you're down by the foreshore. It's a really beautiful location and very central for us. So it means that we can walk a fair few places and minimize time on vehicles at the start of the trip. and just a comfortable place to get settled in and start off. When we head over to Uluru Kakadu National Park, we stay in the Desert Gardens Hotel, um, a just sort of complex. It is sort of the main area that most people will stay, but it's separated into multiple different sort of not resorts, but like groupings of the same sort of hotel resort. And so each place that we stay in are like little areas of apartment. So they do feel a little bit more removed and a little bit more private, which is really nice. And then the center is this really nice common area, really beautiful restaurant with a pool and a garden. And all around are these amazing plants with their names on them. If you want to go for a little botany walk, we often see a lot of bird life and a lot of lizards and dragons hanging out in the rocks in the gardens. Another really beautiful hub. This one's got to be the most iconic because it's shaped like a crocodile. This is the Mercure Crocodile Hotel in Jabiru in Kakadu. And it's so fun being able to be like, oh yeah, your room's just by the rear right leg. Um, we used navigation of crocodile parts quite a lot for this. There are not many options in Jabiru, and this is really, really comfortable for us. Really beautiful garden pool in the center of the belly, as you can see, and a pretty relaxed buffet style restaurant here that allows us to sort of settle into quite an easy routine as we spend some pretty big days out and about. And then we get to the Billy Resort, absolutely stunning place. We're in our beautiful glamping safari tents that don't feel like you're roughing it at all. Really beautiful floors and beds, and they all come with a little kitchenette and a full enclosed bathroom as well. And so you're able to make breakfast in your room if you would like, and we just sort of slow the pace right down towards the end of the trip and relax in there. And it's our base for 4 nights. So a really nice place to call home as we explore the rest of the Kimberley region. Food varies depending where we are. This is the dining car of the Ghan. Very fancy looking. It is lovely. A lot of the places that we eat, we have pretty nice standard restaurant fare. You will find barramundi on the menu quite a lot, which is a local white flesh fish. Um, and yeah, really nice quality of food. It means that we can cater quite easily to dietaries if we know about them. So please make sure that you write that in your information or let your expedition leader know when you get there. But apart from restaurant food throughout, we do have a couple of experiences where we're out and about. So this that Lallam experience where we had these beautiful oysters cooked over the open fire, as well as some not quite rough picnics. And then this is Mac serving us those scones on the boat. So we do have some field meals. We sometimes have some wraps in the field. And then we supplement with these gorgeous, amazing experiences, mainly in our accommodations around town. And we try and go to a lot of different places, especially in Broome. We actually explore quite a lot of the local restaurants, which is really nice to see the diversity of food there. So most things we can cater to quite well. We're quite fortunate with that. We do just need notice. You need to let us know at the start of the trip because some of these places are quite remote and it can take a while to order things in. So if you need anything specific, then please don't hesitate to ask because if we can organize it early, it's always going to be a lot smoother for us. Transport, there's a lot of moving parts. We travel about 7 of the 14 days, including those scenic flights over the Kimberley. So we get quite comfortable sitting on next to each other and having laughs on the planes. Huge variety of planes from really small charter flights to our commercial flight. Um, some will have smaller baggage, and where we just have our day pack, we'll be able to stow them at the back of the plane. So really just that 7 kilo, 15 pound limit for that commercial flight. If it fits on that, it's going to fit for the rest of the trip. So pretty easy there. We do quite a few river cruises throughout the trip as well. It's really beautiful to travel through a landscape because we get to see everything from the water level up. And so we do I should have counted 1, 2, three, four. Yeah, four, oh, and the ferry, if you want to count that. Four cruises throughout the trip. And all feel completely different, all quite comfortable boats like this, with a canopy over the top, which helps to keep us sheltered. And we have plenty of room on those boats as well for us to spread about, for us to get into good positions to take photos and the beautiful wildlife that will present itself, as well as you can just sort of leave your bag and mill about the boat as well. So very, very comfortable. The Ghan, the beautiful Ghan. A lot of people landed and put on their Sunday best as we went into the dining car. It is a sleeper car, so you do just have your small sleeper bed right against the window so you can watch that landscape go by. And then we have a full lounge car where you can spend any time there. And then beyond that is the dining car where we have our meals. And we're just there for that one night to get us from to Catherine. In terms of physical requirements for the trip, it is rated as moderate. I would recommend if you go to the Australian North section on the website, you can drop down on the side to physical requirements, and this is the full overview. I've only captured a snapshot here, but it is very well written and very clear about some of the flight times and the pacing of the trip, as well as walking expectations. So we do rate it as moderate because it is those 14 days. We are going to 5 different full locations. That is quite taxing on us. We're changing climate from Sydney up into those more hot and rural areas. You can feel that in your body. And then we're having very full days walking around, and then with potential uneven surfaces. So we recommend that you can expect to walk 3 to 5 miles per day on uneven surfaces. So just basically just what I said there. And just making sure that you check in with yourself, as with any trip. All the things that we do are optional, although we'd love to have you on all of them. Check in with yourself, and if you feel like you need an afternoon off, it's something that's really worth asking your expedition leader about, because they may recommend a time that may not be as aligned with your interests as another activity. But we definitely had a few people taking half days and just catching up on the journal, or just enjoying the accommodations that we're in, or just processing all the amazing things that we'd seen. So do check in with yourself throughout the trip. General nuts and bolts, cash first card, I often get asked about. Generally, we're moving more towards card only. So I would not be pulling out a lot of cash for this trip. I would take a small amount with you just in case that anything that you would like to get. I'm thinking specifically from art markets that we go to. Everywhere should take card. Everywhere that we've been takes card, but sometimes being in a remote setting, if the service goes down, their card machine may not work. That is also something that you may be able to ask your expedition leader for help for. They may front for a time, but I wouldn't take a lot of cash with you. Card gets you most places, so to only just be for the small stalls that we go to. Adapters, make sure you've got your adapters with you to your devices. I will remind anyone who hasn't been to Australia before, on our power outlets on the wall, sockets, they have a switch. So you plug it in and it may not be charging until you flick the switch on. Gets a lot of people. Cell service and Wi-Fi. We have okay service, and we have Wi-Fi at all of our accommodations. When we're on the road and doing our day trips, we have very limited service. So it is quite limited in terms of communications for general cell service. Your expedition leaders all have a sat phone, and we have radios, and we know where call centers are. We know which hill to stand on to get reception. So if there's anything that you ever need for that, you just let us know. We can facilitate that. But generally, just expecting to have that connection when you're back at base, and then when you're out for the day, you're just out for the day. Soft luggage, we are taking a lot of small planes. So having soft-sided luggage, one hard side, and wheels and the retractable handle is okay, but trying to avoid those big hard shell cases as much as possible. And then the luggage allowances that we have given, a sort of checked in is 15, carry on is £15 and checked is 40, And then in kilos, it's 7 kilos for our carry-on, and then about 18 kilos for our checked luggage. So pretty standard airport limitations there. Gratuities for expedition leaders are listed in the pre-departure briefing. All the other experiences that we have, us expedition leaders do tip them, and that is covered in the cost of the trip. So you don't need to worry about who to tip and how much throughout the trip. Rest assured that we are taking care of that. If you're staying before or after in Australia in terms of service staff or anyone that you're coming across, generally we're not a tipping country, we're not a tipping culture. We do at NatHab because we really value the people that we work with, but it is not expected. Say if you're just getting a coffee or you're going to a restaurant, it's not expected that in Australia. All right. Weather, I sort of mentioned earlier, it's a huge diurnal range. So you're looking at a low of potentially freezing, but it's more often around, sorry, I'm just going to convert it because I work in Celsius. Sort of like maybe 12 Celsius would be the consistent low, which is about 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, so that's what I expect when I'm kind of walking out the door in the morning is a low of about 50 or 12 degrees. And then it can get up to easily up to 100, 110 degrees on a really hot day. And yeah, about 30, 35 if you're really pushing it. We're going in the winter so that we don't get those huge tops because it can be much higher than that in the summer. And generally quite dry in the center, and then you start to hit a bit more humidity in Kakadu and the Kimberley. Generally, we're in dry season, so it's not raining, but never say never. There's been a bit all over the place in Australia at the moment. We have a few systems moving around to the south and the east, so I always bring my rain jacket with me. It is also a really nice layer to add to the repertoire. It's quite light, it's quite small when it packs down, so I would still bring a rain jacket even though we don't anticipate that much rain in the dry season. So that's it for all the nitty gritty and the overview there. These are some lovely photos. So if you have any questions, feel free to chuck them in. I did talk for a little longer, sorry guys. I'll try and push it out. But these are some of the animals that we'll see as well, like camels in the desert. This is our white-bellied, white-breasted sea eagle. Crocodiles, of course, our saltwater or estuarine crocodile. Beautiful rock art. This is our comb-crested jacana, just hanging out on a lily pad. Beautiful egret in the fight. This is a really nice cruise day. And our agile wallaby. Thanks, guys.
All right, Nikki, thank you so much. Now, before we dive into the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that if you do have a question, you can submit them via the question field in your control panel. Just go to the upper right-hand corner and you see those three lines. Go ahead and click on those, scroll down to questions, and that's where you can put those questions. So, what do you think the usual age range of the guests on this trip are, Nikki?
Well, we've only had a couple of the trips so far, so we haven't seen the full, I think, expanse of age ranges that we will over the next couple seasons. I've had, and knowing of my trips coming up, sort of 50 to 80 rough range. But it's definitely a trip suitable for younger travelers as well. If yeah, it's more just thinking about what your activities are and your interest in this trip. Really just thinking about the length of travel and the length of the trip being 14 days and across all these different areas. But otherwise, quite a diverse range. I often see, 30 somethings, 20 somethings, sometimes coming on trips with other family members, but generally sort of 50 to wherever you feel comfortable.
Thank you. And so, how many people are going to be on the trip with us?
The max trip size for the northern trip is 12 people, so really, really comfortable small group size. 12 people. We have Expedition Leader with you the whole time, and then we have local guides in pretty much everywhere that we're at. So really nice access, and it means you've always got a window seat, you've always got access to experience everything that we're going to see there. But yeah, 12.
Great, thank you. So how stringent are the luggage limits? If I have a medical equipment like a CPAP, will that count towards the weight limit?
CPAPs are totally fine. So medical equipment is totally fine. So please, yeah, don't stress on that. And most airlines are very understanding, and if they're not, they can talk to me. But you know, CPAPs are totally fine for that. And if there's anything that is related to a medical device, we'll sort that out on the trip. That's not a problem. In terms of general luggage requirements, beyond that, if it's just that you've got 3 hat boxes because you're really excited to go on the train, then we're going to have a bit of an issue there, and I may have to ask you to leave those behind or send them to the end of our destination. It's not easy for us to store because we start in Sydney and finish in Darwin. So please try and pack conservatively and just think about those light, loose layers. Things like camera equipment as well, just prioritizing your like mid-range lenses and things like that. But yeah, with that one carry-on day, it's more whatever you can put in your check bag, but CPAP's separate.
Gotcha. So you do recommend maybe have carrying a little bit less camera gear, maybe to keep our weight limit down?
Yeah, like I'm not bringing 3 lenses. If yeah, it depends what else you have, right? Because the accoutrement, the batteries, and the bodies, and um, if you're bringing a computer or anything like that, they're all the things that start to add up because they're the things that we don't want to put in our checked bags. So, for example, in my camera bag, I have my one big lens that's taking my weight, and then I have a very, very short 24 to 70, the one body, and then I have a very light tablet laptop that I carry with me. So that's sort of pushing me to my limit. And as a guide, I've got lots of other things like first aid and stuff in there. Generally, if you've got like your good 1 to 400, and then a shorter lens and the one body, you should be fine with that in terms of weight. Um, if you're, yeah,
Great, thank you. Um, uh, is there a great time to come visit if I'm really interested in wildflowers?
well, okay, good question. The nice thing in Australia is that we flower a lot because we don't have your standard 4 seasons. We do wet, dry, and we do desert patterns relating to rain, and we do coastal heath that is whenever that wants to. So there's pretty much always something flowering. Um, yeah, it sort of moves through in waves. I'm trying to think like if there is a best time. Early season, if you're looking for next year, has been really good. That's when a lotus lilies are out, the K-pop in the back of this photo actually. Um, and you're starting to get your acacia wattles out. Mid-season, we're getting a lot more of our wattle species, which is that classic green and gold. And then late season, we're starting to see some different flowers coming out that are I don't know, maybe less iconic, but like more varied. So there's always something out. Yeah, I don't know. I'd maybe early season if that was my priority. That's where I'm leaning.
Gotcha. Thank you, Nikki. So, are we no longer able to climb Uluru, or are we just going to stay at the base and focus on the drawings down there?
Yeah, Uluru is closed to walking and has been for a number of years. It is an incredibly culturally significant site, and walking on it was sort of not really a thing that really should have ever occurred. It has caused a fair bit of environmental damage as well. And so the walk was closed in, I'd say 2017, 2019, I can't remember. Um, and so you can still see the shuffle marks of where people walked up, but it's completely closed. And unfortunately, pollution from the top has actually damaged some of the water holes for the next 30 years. So it did have a really big and negative impact, and it's something that we do talk about when we're walking on Uluru is shut. We can walk around the base of it, and we walk into the gorges right up to the face of Uluru on multiple sides. We then also take a step back and we look at the landscape from a little bit further away, which is allowing us to take in the full majesty of Uluru. So we see it from a lot of different angles, but we're not going up it anymore.
So let me ask you this. Is it, would you say it's a guarantee that we're going to see a kangaroo?
It's actually not. If you're hoping for kangaroos, I would be doing the ultimate in the southern trip. It is very good chances, and I never guarantee anything, but very good chances to see an agile wallaby. Agile wallabies are a little bit smaller, they're a different species, but they give you that kangaroo feel. They give you the bounce and the look, and that was, I'll go back to it. This fella is our agile wallaby. When we're up in the north, we actually don't see kangaroo species where we are in Kakadu. In Uluru, we don't see many kangaroos around Uluru. There are some red kangaroos a bit further out. It's more likely to see them around Alice or from the train. But where we are is not quite red kangaroo territory. And then Broome as well is not kangaroo territory. So in terms of we only have 3 kangaroo species and we have another 50 macropod species. So macropod, big feet, so they are all of our wallabies, our bandicoots, our bettongs, like all these small things. So we do have the opportunity to see many other marsupials, and the agile wallaby is the most common macropod species that we see, and we see quite well. But in terms of true kangaroo species, that's south and ultimate.
Great, thank you. Hey, so when we're out on the trip, am I going to have to worry about water, or would the guides bring extra water along with it?
We'll always have extra water, so don't feel that you need to be a pack horse and carry 5 liters with you. We'll always have water in the vehicles, and any place that we go throughout the day, we'll always be topping up. So please just keep sipping that water. We'll keep refilling it, and there are adequate bathroom breaks as well. So all the way through the process, you'll be looked after, but definitely really important to stay hydrated. Yeah, and don't hesitate to ask. We always have spare water with us.
So we're going to be there for 2 weeks. Are we going to have a chance maybe to do a little laundry along the way?
Yes, we will. I'm just triple checking in my head. Yeah, all of our accommodations after Sydney will have laundry facilities. We do also have them in Sydney, but we're there for 2 days and it's a little bit less convenient. But all the other places we have laundry facilities as part of the accommodation. So there'll be multiple washer dryer sets set around each place. And so there's the opportunity and there's the time to do laundry for each of our accommodations. Yeah, generally, yeah, you can do it whenever you want. I think I had people doing loads individually, doing loads at different times throughout the trip. And I think anyone who wanted to do washing got their washing done. So there's definitely time for that. And it's something that we also prioritize. So if you let us know, I know that a few of our dinner conversations are, I'm going to leave in 10 minutes to go change my drying. So there's definitely time for that.
Great, thank you. So a lot of us are a little surprised that there are actually camels in Australia. What else would you say would be a big surprise for us if we come down to visit you on the trip?
Camels are a big one, aren't they? So the Ghan or the Ghan is named for the Afghan cameleers. So the camels were brought over as sort of pack animals when Europeans were first expanding their range throughout Australia. And places like Uluru, places like Alice Springs, were not accessible without camels really to bring resources in for that sort of Western settlement. And so when that was done, the railway was built, we started getting roads. They didn't need the camels anymore and they just let them go. So we actually have the largest wild population of camels in the world. We actually export camels back to areas that you would expect to have camels. They are a bit of a nuisance for us because they do trample and they do drink a lot of water that should be going to a lot of our native animals. But it is also quite bizarre to see this group. This was a group of about 7 camels, and the one in front was this very vocal male. So that was a bit of a nice surprise, and that was out on our patchy experience at Uluru. What else would surprise? I think the diversity of birds is absolutely incredible because we're starting down coastal, then we do central desert, and then we go up to northern tropical wetland region. I think on the last trip we clocked about 260 species of birds. It's a hugely diverse place, and I think people don't really realize how varied it is there. The marine life as well, specifically over in Broome and taking that cruise there is just incredible. That diversity and just a lot of species that you wouldn't have heard of. If anyone's into reptiles, I think our lizards and our little dragons are really, really unique and really diverse as well. I feel like we don't talk about reptiles as much as we could. Um, we do have snakes. We don't see them very often. I wish we saw them more. I actively look for them. They really don't want to be around us because we're big and we're scary. So as long as we're sticking to the paths, we don't have to worry about snakes, but it is something that I would love to see because they're a beautiful part of our ecosystem. But yeah, our diversity of reptiles, especially in the desert, is really incredible. We have a little lizard called a thorny devil, which is just covered in these little protrusions, and it like rocks when it walks. It's the cutest. Oh, yeah, everyone should go home and look up a thorny devil. I should have put a photo in, but they're a cool target species to get.
Well, great, Nikki. Thank you so much for sharing. Unfortunately, that will be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for some closing comments.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for listening to me ramble on. I know I went a bit longer than I anticipated, but it is just such an amazing, magical trip. I really hope that you join us here. It's a place, well, it's many places that I think so many Australians don't fully appreciate, let alone internationally. There's so much that you'll see and experience that you'll just go, wow, how has this been here the whole time and I've not known about it? So please have a look, see if it works for you. I'd love to see you there, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Nikki, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who joined us today. So if you are interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.